The Deputy President of the Supreme Court actually indicated what that court needs. It was about tax, it was about intellectual property, and I don't remember the one, but I just heard you saying that you have done tax. But I think, how much did you do? I think that will satisfy me. How much did you do of what that court needs?
Of tax matters, I've done a lot of tax matters.
And intellectual property, that's what I heard.
Intellectual property matters I have done. I've actually written judgments on it, yes. But you must understand that I'm in the Western Cape. We deal with these type matters really routinely. Even in our motion courts, you will have a matter that you must, on an urgent basis, deal with. Must certainly have dealt with them, yes.
And I imagine that that list would include shipping law matters.
Yes, it
coming
is.
from Cape Town.
Yeah.
Okay. It does not appear that there are any more questions for you, Judge Batman. Let me just join Commissioner Trollip in commending you for your tenacity and thank you for coming back time and time again to present yourself to this body. And I just want to assure you, I happen to have sat with you in a number of matters at the SA, so I know what you're capable of. I don't want you to take your previous failures before this body as an indication that you are not a good judge. So unless there's anything you want to ask us, you are excused.
Okay. Can I thank you, Chief Justice? I just want to bring something to the Commissioner's attention. The South African chapter of the International Association of Women Judges wrote a recommendation for me. It's dated the 2nd of September. When I received it, I saw that in paragraph 1, they referred to me having received a BA instead of a BURS. And in paragraph 2, actually the sentences 2 and 3 should be deleted. That's not reference to me. I contacted them and we resolved that I would ask the commissioners on paragraph 2 to delete the second and third sentence, and on paragraph 1, it's BURIS instead of BA. I think it's fair that you have just not leave it like that. It is wrong. Thank you. Chief Justice, that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judge Bergman. You're excused.
May I be excused? Thank you, Commissioner.
Good day, Judge Chetty.
Good day, Chief Justice.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Are you comfortable?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. You hold 3 law degrees BA Rees and, BA Law and LLB from the University of Durban, Westville,
Yes.
and a master's from New York University on a Fulbright scholarship.
Yes.
Right. And what was your subject of specialty for your LLM?
Um, I did work in labor law and in international human rights law in general.
Yeah. Then you started your legal career at the sidebar. You did your articles, then became an attorney,
Yes.
and you practiced as an attorney for about 25 years,
26, I think.
26,
Yes.
with the LRC, Legal
Yes.
Resources
I
Center,
was at the Legal Resources Center for just about 24 years and a bit.
both in Joburg and Durban.
First in Johannesburg and most of my time in Durban.
Right. When were you appointed as a judge?
June or 31st May 2014, I
14.
think.
So it's
Yes.
been 10 years.
Yes.
What kind of work did you do as an attorney? What did your practice?
Well, I think during the time that I was in Johannesburg, from about 1990 to 1994, it was mainly claims against the police, matters of police brutality. But I also did a significant amount of work in employment discrimination work, as well as my work in respect of AIDS litigation. That was one of the main focuses at that time. And we spent a lot of time breaking new ground in terms of ensuring assistance or that people's rights were protected. Those people living with AIDS, their rights were protected. And we litigated quite frequently in that regard. One of the decisions that I reflected in my curriculum vitae is one of the early decisions of the right to healthcare for people with HIV and AIDS.
All right. You are based in the KwaZulu-Natal division of the High Court.
That's correct.
The whole of your
Yes.
period of service as a judge.
Yes.
What legal areas of the law have you been exposed to in that division, and what kind of judgments have you written?
Well, I've been exposed to matters of customs and excise, issues of forfeiture of counterfeit goods by SARS, administrative law, education law, municipal law, elections, more recently patents, intellectual property, insolvency, business rescue. Those were areas that I was relatively unfamiliar with by virtue of my practice. But I managed to navigate my way through them, and some of the reported decisions reflect those areas of law. But I've done work in areas of planning law, contractual law, family law, a wide range of areas.
Maritime law matters part of the package?
I've had a few. Often they come up as urgent applications.
Yes.
Sometimes, so often over the weekends or late at night for the arrest of ships. And more recently, I sat as part of a full court to hear a matter concerning an associated vessel, but the matter the court took a decision to adjourn the matter because the SCA had already heard an appeal based on the same facts and in relation to the same vessel. And that was, I think, in relation to the Endeavour. and the court delivered its judgment on on what it considered to be an associated vessel.
You have acted at the SCA.
Yes, I have.
When and for how long?
Chief Justice, I think you invited me to the SCA to act for the first time, but
You were not available
unfortunately,
then.
no, my arrival coincided with your departure
Yeah.
to the Constitutional Court. But I've been there for 3 terms.
Did you get an opportunity to write judgments for the Supreme Court of Appeal?
Yes, I indicated
You
in
did
my
list
CV that I wrote 6 judgments, of which 1 I co-wrote, and in total, I think 3 of those were reported.
How many judgments would you say you have written in the High Court? It doesn't have to be an exact number.
I've never kept count, but the reported judgments, including, I think my reported judgments in the High Court are 20 so far.
All right, that's a fair number. Do you have any reserved judgments?
I've got 1 from
Reserved
the
from
last
when?
term.
Just from the last term, no, that doesn't count.
Yes, or from, I think
Yet.
it was in the latter part of August, that would be handed down shortly.
All right. You mentioned a few health issues in your application form, but you say they're under control. They don't affect
No,
the execution of your judicial duties.
no, they don't. I think I've taken up cycling. I've done about 11,500 Ks in the last 3 years. So
That's impressive. Okay. I see that you've done quite a few other things apart from your judicial career. You were, oh well, this is part of that. You were an arbitrator and mediator with IMSA back then,
yes,
and then you worked with the Development Facilitation Appeals Tribunal for a spell. What did you do there?
I joined or was appointed to the Town Planning Appeal Board and to the Development Facilitation Tribunal. And essentially it dealt with appeals from the municipalities in respect of planning decisions. And I was, after I think a period of 8 years serving on the Town Planning Board, I was elevated to the position of the chairman. And it entailed writing decisions primarily on administrative law issues in relation to planning infringements.
You also worked with the Foundation for Human Rights.
Yes, I serve on their advisory board as I'm also I think it's called a patron or member of the advisory board of the Legal Resources Trust.
Yeah. All right. No, thank you very much, Judge Chetty. I will hand over to Deputy President Zondi, who represents the Supreme Court of Appeal, to put questions, if any, that he may have for you.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Shetty.
Good afternoon, Deputy President.
I see that you have written quite a lot and on various aspects of the law. As you are well aware that at the CA, we have had a number of people either retiring or going to the Constitutional Court, and which has impacted the ability of our court to deal with issues such as company laws, intellectual property, and tax matters. I see that you have done some of, in the cases that we have mention in your pack, you also included cases on tax. Is it VAT? There's a case that dealt with VAT.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that, Deputy President.
You're
The
right.
last part.
You, in one of the cases that you mentioned in your pack is the case that had to do with VAT, is that correct?
I'm sorry, just the last part of your question escaped me, Deputy President.
Okay. Can I just refer you to page 14 of the pack of the case that you indicated at paragraph 8?
Yes.
Yes, it's a case that had to do with VAT fraud, VAT fraud.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, what about your exposure in intellectual property?
Well, I haven't had too much of exposure, save for more recently, where I've had to delve into issues of intellectual property and trademark, and I've been able to navigate my way around that.
Yeah, I must mention that you have dealt with shipping law as well. There was one case on which I sat, which was coming from your division. It's a case that had to do with an associated ship.
Yes. And I think there was another case that we sat on together concerning the termination or cancellation of a charter party agreement.
Right. I see that you, in your acting stance, page 19A, you acted at the SCA, well, paragraph 1 of the letter there, 19A.
Sorry, just 1 minute, please, Deputy President. You said 19.
Yes, 19A, paginated bundle.
Yes, I've got that.
Yes. That was the first stint in 2022 was, it would have been August to September sittings. That is the long term.
Yes.
And then the other terms are just short term. The November term is a short term. We start from the 1st of November, that is sitting.
Yes.
1st of November until the 30th of November. So basically you had how many terms? About 5 terms. Sorry, about 3 terms.
Three terms, yes.
One long term.
One long
and
and two short, yes.
Because, I mean, it's one of the concerns our colleagues have raised that maybe you haven't acted enough, but judging from the number of judgments that we have written, it doesn't seem to me that that would be an impediment to your ability to contribute to the SCA, because I can say that you do apply yourself when you write judgments. Your judgments are well reasoned.
Thank you.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, TP Zondi. Commissioners, do you have questions for Commissioner Lekhanyan?
CJ, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Judge Chetty. I see
Good afternoon.
here on your CV, there is a strong motivation that you devoted almost the entirety of your life to the service of the poor, the less fortunate, and the historically marginalized, and your deep respect for fundamental human rights. I do not want to ask you a question. I just want you to elaborate on that aspect. your experience on the access to justice by that vulnerable section of society and how the South African law in the new democratic order has served such section. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I decided more or less at the time when I was studying abroad that I wanted to pursue a career in public interest law. My first foray into that area was in respect of labor work, which in some ways is a microcosm of larger societal issues. You have issues of, particularly of discrimination, unfairness, and that gave me the springboard to move on to other areas of work. I've always seen my early career at university, and even before that, as a stepping stone to do something useful, to contribute to make our society better. And for that reason, I adopted a view that I would spend, if I didn't get appointed to the bench, I would have spent my entire legal career doing public interest work. That's who I am, and I think I would bring that experience to an appellate court or any court that I sit in. Insofar as I think the second part of your question is whether the plight of poor and vulnerable people has improved in our society, if I understood correctly, Commissioner.
If I may come in, Chief Justice, the perception is pervasive in society that South African law serves the rich more than the poor. So I got very impressed when I see the devotion that you have given to servicing this section of our society. And I thought you would be able to elaborate
Yes. So,
the extent to which, in your observation or your experiences, the law has been accessible. I mean, the poor have been able to access the law and how that has served them.
yes. I think from a perspective on the bench, you still see vast degrees of inequality, but I think it's up to the judicial officers to be alert to inequalities, particularly in representation of poor and marginalized groups, and to be true to the objectives of our Constitution, to make it possible for marginalized groups to have their voices heard in court. And there are various ways that you can do that by ensuring that their matters are adjourned or to ensure that they have adequate representation. But even apart from that, particularly when it comes to issues of evictions, judicial officers shouldn't approach it purely in a mechanical fashion, but should take into account all relevant circumstances. And if you find that there is no option but to grant an eviction order, you still have a latitude to determine, well, what would be an appropriate period of time for the eviction order to take effect. And it is in that regard that judicial officers who are faithful to the constitutional objectives can ensure that even people who are marginalized or poor, the brunt of our laws can be somehow ameliorated. I hope I've answered some of your question.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Thank you so much.
Commissioner,
No, thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Shetty.
Good afternoon.
You have just recently handed down a judgment between the African National Congress vis-a-vis the Umkhonto weSizwe Party. Now, my question with regards to that, how do you ensure that ensure your judicial independence and impartiality in such high-profile cases?
Well, I think I'm a fair person. I determine any matter, whether it be high profile or not, based on the facts before me, based on the law before me. I don't succumb to any external pressure. I simply concentrate on the issues and on the law.
Thanks for the response. My second question would then be with regards to your professional experience, which covers a wide range of legal fields, including the constitutional administration and commercial law. How does this diverse background contribute to your suitability for the position on the Supreme Court of Appeal?
Thank you. I think it's precisely that. My diverse range of cases that I've dealt with, I would be able to bring different perspective to some of the thinking, but also I think mainly my almost 25 years as a public interest lawyer, I'd be able to bring that unique perspective to the court.
No, thank you very much for the response. Thanks, CJ.
Commissioner Mwimang?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Chetty.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
I want to take you back to the ANC versus MK, the judgment. But my angle is different. There are two parts. Of course, the first one relates to where you said that the ANC chose the wrong forum to assert its rights. I don't have a problem with that. Where I want to get your comments, is your observation on the merits. You say that apart from the distinctive green background on observation, the registered mark of the ANC and that used by MK are similar, although a careful eye will notice a difference. The question that I want to ask from yourself is what is your understanding of the first user principles, which comes from the common law, which in a sense suggests that even if you do not register your trademark, you have the cause of action against an alleged infringer on the grounds of passing off. I'm raising this point because the claim was also brought in terms of contravention of section 34(1)(a) of the Trademark Act. Just on the basis of the first user principle, what is your appreciation of that? Don't you think that the first user principle, in a sense, if that was applied by the esteemed judge, a different conclusion would have been raised?
Well,
Thank you, Chief Justice.
yes. Commissioner, I'll have to respectfully say that I'd have to possibly sidestep it on the basis that I've granted leave to appeal in the matter to the SCA. So I'm not sure whether I'd be permitted to express my view, because I've already indicated that another court might or would come to a different, or could come to a different conclusion on that aspect.
Thank you, Judge Chetty. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
Sorry,
can
I've
I
been
just,
asked by the CJ to manage the proceedings in that while she's just going out to make an urgent call. The next-
Deputy President of the SCA, I just want to follow up,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
sure.
Judge Shetty, I do think you should do justice to yourself by engaging with the discussion. You've granted leave, so it's out of your hands.
Yes.
I think the commissioner might repeat his question. He's basically testing the reasoning you gave in the judgment. I think that's a fair question. I just don't want people to say that you avoided answering questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, if you'd be so kind to refer me to the particular paragraph that you wanted me to address you on, of the judgment.
Thank you, Judge. In the judgment, you say that when dealing with the merits, apart from the distinctive green background
Yes.
on observation, the registered mark of the ANC and that used by the MKP are similar, although a careful eye will notice a difference at the height in which the spear is held by the warrior. You heard that that in itself, no trademark resemblance to each other were so closely deceptive or confusion, or could cause confusion among voters, would not have led to that. Now, the question that I'm asking is, based on the first user principle, which is a common law, on the basis that the passing off suggests that you cannot represent your good or your service. In this instance, the MKP continues to represent the MK as their product. So now, my argument is that even if you do not register a trademark, the infringement based on the first user principles informed by the fact that this logo, the MK, was used by the ANC since 1961. Had you used the first user principles, don't you think that you would have come to a different conclusion? Obviously, it hinges on your on your conceptualization of the intellectual property rights, passing off trademarks. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. If I understand, you're referring to that section of the judgment from paragraph 70 onwards. Would I be correct?
That's correct, because that's where you express yourself on merits.
Yes.
So I'm saying that don't you think that had you applied the first user principle, you could have come to a different conclusion?
Possibly. I accept that. It wasn't argued on that basis, though. The contention by the applicants was that the mark had been used by the ANC for a number of years, and that the respondent, being the MK party, had no prior history of use of that mark, and therefore was seeking to essentially ride on the coattails of the ANC. But I accept the point that you raise.
No, thank you, Chief Justice. Thank you, Judge Chetty.
Minister?
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good afternoon, Judge Chetty.
Good afternoon.
I see
Good
you're
afternoon.
trying to locate the voice. No, just on your CV, the questionnaire actually, on number 6, it says, I'm not sure if you can locate it, please furnish chronological particulars of employment since leaving school or university.
Yes.
Can you locate that?
Yes.
Yes, it's section 1 under personal.
Yes.
Yes.
I see that.
Yep. You have filled the KZN Town Planning Appeals Board together with the tribunal, the
Yes.
position held but with no period.
Oh, I see.
I'm not
Yes.
sure whether it's an omission, and maybe you can fill us in.
I held those positions during the time that I worked at the LRC. So they were purely additional positions that I had held, and that would have been from the period 1994 to, I think, 2014, around there. But I looked at question 6 again, and perhaps I interpreted it in a rather strict sense and just went to the time that I started articles. But I'd obviously worked during the time that I was at university, but those were casual jobs along the way. But coming back to your question, Minister, the positions that I held at the Town Planning Appeal Board and the Development Appeal Board were positions that I held during my time at the LRC, and with the consent of the national directors during those times.
So was it the appeals board and the board for the municipality or the province?
Oh, no. It was for the, it fell under the provincial government, under the, I think under traditional affairs, if I remember. That's where the town planning component resided.
Okay. And secondly, the widespread, maybe we may want to find details there. I'm not very certain of because of the time periods in the 90s and I follow, and I'm sorry for taking you back. I thought I was moving forward with my last question. The town, you say the at the time you were at the LLC, and it looks like you started in 1990
Yes,
at the LLC. Now, I'm not sure whether the same was relatively at the same time, because then it can tell us the functions of what exactly.
oh no, yes, thank you, Minister. If I could clarify that. During the period 1990 to 95, so I was in Johannesburg at the LRC in Johannesburg. I moved to Durban in 1995, and it's only later during that period of 1995 to 2014 that I'd served in my capacity as a member first and later as the chairperson of the Town Planning Appeal Board. But that would have been in KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay, it's all right, Chair, let me get off it, because it would have been then be different bodies. I think that's the point that I'm trying to raise. It would have been prior the tribunal system, if my understanding is correct, earlier on, if it dates back before the 1990s. There have been the widespread concern in the recent times about what is termed judicial overreach. As a judge of the SCA, how are you going to maintain the balance between polycentric matters which are in the domain of the executive and the need for the judiciary to discharge its responsibilities within the parameters of the Constitution? I think you touched on it a little bit, but an expansion could be of help.
Well, I think both in the SCA and in the high courts, judges are mindful, or should always be mindful, not to tread on the terrain of the other arms of state. And I think that by and large, our courts have adhered to that, and that there is a mutual respect for the roles of the respective arms of state.
Thank you, Minister. JP Mlambo.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Chetty.
Good afternoon, JB.
You are applying for permanent appointment to an appellate court. Can you tell us about your exposure in full court appeals, that is in presiding and scribing full court judgments in the division,
Yes.
KZN division?
Yes. Thank you, JB. I've presided in full court appeals in respect of more recently in criminal matters, but I've scribed in full court appeals from relatively early on.
Yes.
After my appointment. One of the decisions that I've included, which was reported, is a matter of Jeria versus Oudtshoorns, where I scribed for full court. And I've done so on other occasions. I can't remember the exact matters, but that's the only full court matter which is reported.
Yes. And then you've sat in the SCA, but have you not had other appellate exposure, say sitting in the LAC?
No, I've not sat in the Labour Appeal Court.
I see. And then in the Supreme Court of Appeal, have you scribed any matters that involved a constitutional issue?
There was one matter that I think which was subsequently I learned went to the Constitutional Court concerning the it was a judicial officer or a military judge who was seeking to challenge certain aspects of the military code. The SCA, I co-wrote that decision or a minor part of that decision.
Yes.
And that has gone on appeal. But essentially, the military judge was seeking to have or to be treated in much the same way as a judicial officer would. But that's the only matter, Judge President, which I think I recall that dealt with some constitutional angles.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, JP. Commissioner Godsell?
Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
A concern was raised with the timeframe for delivering judgments in the High Court. Your track record in the SCA is all very good. Can you just comment on the lengthy periods for delivering judgments in the High Court? I can give you some more information if you wish.
Commissioner, are you referring to the comment by the...
The General Counsel of the Bar.
Yes. By and large, I try and get my judgments out fairly quickly within the allocated time frame. Some matters are obviously more complex than others. And I've never had any occasion where parties have had to write to the judge president to inquire of lateness. And the practice that I do follow is that if I were to take further time in a matter, I would write in advance to the parties to give them an anticipated date when I would be able to deliver.
So the 4 judgments that was delivered between 5 and 6 months, would you in those cases have written to the parties to say that you need
I would have in most of these cases. I can't remember the specifics, but I would have always done so. If there was an impediment that came into me delivering it within the general period of 3 months, I would have indicated to them. Thank you.
Any more questions, commissioners?
It's me this side, Chief Justice.
Come again?
Is it my turn, Chief Justice?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Chetty.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
You struck me as a diligent and hardworking judge, given the fact that you were able to deliver your judgment, most of your judgment, timeous. What do you attribute that to? I see Saula says that you have a full grasp of the law.
Yes, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it.
Saula made a recommendation based on 2 sentences. They said that you are appointed in 2014 and you have full grasp of the law. And I want to agree with that. But then there is a judgment that you penned at the SCA. I don't know if you remember this judgment.
Yes, I'm aware of it. It was a a matter that concerned a personal injury claim on behalf of a minor child.
Yes, but that's
Yes.
not the judgment I want to ask you about. The one that I want to ask you about is the one of Mhlonhlo local municipality and others
Oh,
versus Cini Kaya Ngakula. It was an appeal from the Eastern Cape.
yes.
Do you remember that matter? I must commend you on it because it is a well-written and beautiful judgment, more especially because it deals with the issue of concurrent jurisdiction between the Labour Court and the High Court, as well as the exclusive jurisdiction of the court. And I note that you did not make it reportable when such issues are everyday issues in the High Court.
I think the practice at the SCA is that we guided by the presiding judge as to whether a matter should be marked reportable or not, but you're correct, it wasn't marked reportable, but it was subsequently reported.
Yes, because it is really a conundrum in the High Court. But given the time that you spent in the SCA, where you have had an overview of the judgments that come from various divisions, would you be available to provide training for judges in the lower divisions, in the High Court divisions to be precise?
If I'm called upon, I would certainly avail myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mangena.
Could I follow up, Chief Justice?
Yes, Commissioner Waitoli.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Judge said, I just want to go back to an earlier question that has been asked, which is related to the discussion you've just had now with Commissioner Mangan. You said that you have not delivered a judgment where constitutional issues arise in the SCA. Did I get that correctly?
Yes.
Well, I mean, because you gave the judgment in Siangena, where Section 33 of the Constitution applies, Section 172 of the Constitution applies. You also gave this judgment that you are discussing now with Commissioner Mangan, in which you had to apply the Baloy judgment of the Constitutional Court about who has the jurisdiction to decide labor cases, which is also a constitutional issue. So I just wonder whether, I suppose whenever we say constitutional, sometimes I get confused, what do people mean? Because the judgment of Chaskalson, CJ in Kamisha said that the starting point is the Constitution. And then everything else is subservient to it. So it's just to get clarity there, but what do you mean when you say these are not constitutional issues when the judgment itself cites the Constitution and applies it?
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. I suppose the ambivalence lies in exactly how you define what is a constitutional matter, and you're quite correct. Siangena dealt with the issue of relief specifically under Section 172 1B, and where we upheld the relief that was set out by the High Court, and we said that there was no basis to interfere with it because it was the exercise of a true discretion. But perhaps maybe I misinterpreted the question, and I suppose for that matter, in the SCA, I also scribed, I think it was one or two matters that dealt with the issue of prescription. And there too, one has to consider the underlying constitutional principles in terms of whether somebody who is relatively unsophisticated, who lives in a far-flung rural area, no access to advice, in respect of whom prescription periods can be held strictly applicable. So I take the point.
Yes, I mean, it does go beyond the characterization of a specific issue about really what do we mean when we say the Constitution is supreme? And to what extent is a court like the Supreme Court of Appeal committed to starting with the Constitution when it's construing our law? So that we don't only ask the Constitutional Court to deal with the Constitution, but we put the foundation of our system in the hands of the Constitution. And so when someone like you is, especially who's had an incredible record of 26 years working for poor people, is going to the SCA, we then look upon you that you will now finally translate this constitution into reality. So I get concerned when you are ambivalent, as you say, because I depend on you not to be ambivalent.
No, my point about ambivalence was the question, not about the constitutional interpretations. But, they've been also, I accept your point that you raise in terms of the constitution obviously being the starting point. But it's difficult to answer a question where almost every judgment you've written touches on aspects of the Constitution. And the other answer that I could have given, well, every matter that I would have written would have been a constitutional matter.
Thank you, Judge Chetty. Commissioner Marumongkhaya? Are you there, Professor?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Are you ready?
Can you hear me, CJ?
Are you ready to pose
Can you hear
questions to the candidate?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much. Good day, Judge Chetty.
Good day, Commissioner.
Yes, I wanted to raise the issue of constitutionalism in as far as the judgments are concerned, but I think that ground has been covered. Can I take you back to the discussion that you had with Commissioner Muimang with regards to the MKANC intellectual property issue judgment?
Yes.
I'm not really sure if you can be really criticized in that judgment. I had the benefit of actually watching the proceedings. And in paragraph 2 of that judgment, you lay out what exactly the judgment is about. And in paragraphs 71, 73, and 74, you actually deal with the issue of the common law remedy of unlawful competition, which is basically a dealing. I just want to ask this. In this particular judgment, were you concerned with the issue of one party claiming an infringement over a particular goodwill based on something that was in practice at the time and being used at the time? Or was it something that was done historically? In other words, when you are going to the elections, you have the ANC with its own logo that they are competing with. But now you are having MK on the other side coming with something that has historical value to the ANC. Under those circumstances, can we really say that the common law remedy of passing of unlawful competition has any role to play?
Thank you. I'm not sure if I have to go back and visit or revisit my judgment. I've said everything that I needed to, and I'm not sure. I'm looking at the section that's been raised with me under paragraphs 40 onwards or 70 onwards, but as I indicated earlier, the argument raised on behalf of the ANC was essentially that the MK part were exploiting its history by adopting a logo similar to its, and that where in circumstances they had no equivalent history to fall back on. And that was, as I understood it at the time, when it was argued, the issue of the infringement and the common law passing off argument.
No, you are quite right. Your approach is quite right. That was the third ground that the ANC relied on. And in paragraph 71, 72, 73, 74, you actually dispose it quite correctly. So the issue of first user in these circumstances was not applicable. And you are quite right in your approach. I'm not sure if you can validly be criticized on your approach. Thank you very much, CJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Do you still want to say something, just Chetty?
No, Chief Justice, other than to say that I believe that my varied experience in the High Court, together with my experience as a public interest litigator, my experience at the SCA, having worked with colleagues, having benefited from the interchange and the engagement, the intellectual rigor that that court demands, the preciseness, the brevity, and the need to speak clearly through one's judgments is something that I believe I would be able to make a positive contribution in. And in that respect, I would also bring my my diverse life experience to that position. But that's all that I have to say. The rest is in the hands of the Commission.
Thank you very much, Judge Chetty.
Thank you very
And
much,
for
Chief
making
Justice.
yourself available.
Thank
I'm
you.
thanking you for what you just said and for making yourself available for the interview.
Thank you.
You're excused.
Thank you.
Commissioners, our lunch is ready at the restaurant just around the corner when you leave this room. We set ourselves 45 minutes, so I expect that we will stick to our undertaking to ourselves. So we come back at 2 sharp. The candidate will be sitting there waiting to be interviewed at 2. Enjoy your lunch.
Can we leave our computers here?